She exposed the arrogant billionaire at the next table, not knowing he was her incredible match. Sarah's fingers trembled as she poured coffee for the couple at table 7. The diner hummed with the familiar rhythm of chattering patrons, the smell of bacon wafting through the air, inviting comfort and camaraderie. But today, an unease gripped her heart. In walked a group clad in designer clothes, their laughter harsh against the backdrop of friendly banter. They seemed to float above the hard-working customers, their presence a stark reminder of Sarah's struggle to make ends meet, to provide a better life for her son. James, tall, charismatic, and exuding confidence, made the most noise. He leaned back and made jabs about the local flavor, mocking the diner's faux marble countertops. Sarah's blood boiled. Each word dripped with disdain for the only life she knew. Who did he think he was? She felt a pang of defiance, igniting a fierce urge to defend not just her livelihood, but the whole community. This diner is more than your playground, and these people deserve your respect, she thought, clenching her jaw as she filled another cup. The noise fell away as she mustered the courage to step closer, steeling herself. He could laugh and belittle all he wanted, but she wouldn't stand for it. You think this place is a joke? Hard work goes into every cup you're drinking, she blurted, her voice sharper than she intended. Gasps fluttered through the diner. Eyes turned wide, a silence that resonated. She stood there, her legs felt heavy, her heart pounding. She had done it. Confronted him. But terror gripped her. What if he laughed her off? What if she misplaced her anger and ruined her own chance of stability? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. James's laughter faltered, surprise displacing his smugness. But instead of lashing out, he leaned forward, eyes darkening with interest. The tension electrified the air, and with it came her regret. She had pinned a target on herself, challenging someone who lived in another world entirely. How could she trust him? Each glance they exchanged twisted the knife deeper. What did she want from him? As patrons resumed their conversations, her heart raced with confusion. She wore her dignity fiercely, but the weight of insecurity loomed ever larger. She felt anchored, yet simultaneously adrift. The diner, her safe haven, now felt suffocating, as if walls were closing in. Her mind spiraled. Would he retaliate? Was confronting him worth the risk of being ostracized in the very community she loved? Her son's future relied on her. Could she afford to alienate a wealthy customer? Or might this unexpected encounter shift the very course of her life? As James studied her, she caught a glimpse of something, perhaps sincerity, perhaps challenge. An internal war raged inside her, desperately torn between resentment for his privilege and a flicker of curiosity. But as a tension crackled beneath their surface, she dared not lower her boundaries. In the face of crumbling certainty, one question haunted her. Could she trust a man whose world felt so far removed from her own? A darkness clouded her heart as thoughts collided. The beginning of something or the end of everything she'd fought for. Uncertainty enveloped her like a storm, leaving her standing on the precipice of a decision that could either lead to liberation or despair. As Sarah stood there, the haze of uncertainty clouding her thoughts, the other customers began to whisper among themselves, some in awe, others in shock. The murmur of voices, though distant, seeped into her consciousness, amplifying her anxiety. She could sense the weight of eyes upon her, waiting to see if she would retreat or stand her ground. This moment was fraught not just with personal stakes, but with professional consequences that could ripple outward. James broke the silence, his tone devoid of mockery. You're right. Every cup of coffee tells a story, doesn't it? His gaze pierced through her defenses, softly challenging the image she had carefully constructed over the years. Sarah's instinct told her to flinch, to turn back to the safety of the kitchen. But a different voice within insisted she remain standing. Could this be a moment of growth? Every morning, I wake up at 4 to make sure my son has breakfast and gets to school on time. You might see this diner as nothing more than a backdrop for your brunch, but it's my life, she managed to say, her voice steadier than she felt. Intrigued, he didn't look away. Instead, he leaned closer, the casual confidence shifting to something more earnest. I didn't mean to offend, but honestly, I appreciate a good story. Maybe I've lost touch with the real world, he admitted, a hint of vulnerability betraying his well-crafted bravado. Caution mingled with intrigue. Trusting him felt like walking a tightrope. What if he was simply trying to disarm her? But Sarah's spirit craved authenticity. If he was willing to engage with her reality, perhaps this confrontation could lead not to ruin, but to unexpected possibilities. The realization struck her this was more than a clash of worlds. It was a potential bridge between them. What if he could provide insights that allowed her to see beyond the diner? What if, against all odds, something valuable could emerge from this moment? With that thought spiraling in her mind, she allowed herself to lean into the confrontation. You want a story? Here's one. My son deserves more than to grow up without knowing what real work looks like. I'm doing everything I can for him, and I won't let someone like you undermine that. The words left her lips as if prompted by an unseen force. Surprisingly, instead of recoiling, James nodded. I get that. It's refreshing to meet someone who fights for what they value. He paused, his expression growing contemplative. What do you want for your son's future? The sincerity in his voice registered deeply, awakening a bold dream that had long lain dormant, an image of her son flourishing, student loans minimized, aspirations nurtured, freedom from the treadmill of survival. I want him to have options, to know he can achieve anything he desires. Not just survive, but thrive. For an instant, they were no longer adversaries, but partners in a fragile dance of ambition. In that shared space, Sarah began to recognize her own strength not just as a waitress defending her diner, but as a mother, a protector, someone yearning for more. But before she could unravel those burgeoning thoughts, the clattering of dishes pulled her back. Sarah's heart raced. What was she doing? This isn't a business meeting. Her job could hang in the balance. Caught between her instinct to protect her world and her curiosity about the man challenging her, she felt dizzy. Maybe we can find a way to help each other, James suggested, breaking her spiral of hesitation. I think we could learn a lot from each other. Sarah pondered his words, their implications expanding in her mind, a web of new possibilities unfolding. Was she ready to explore this new terrain? Yet, in the mix of hope and fear, a quiet voice reminded her of her priorities. As the coffee pot slipped from her fingers, she noticed the spill spreading like an uncharted opportunity beneath their feet. Learning from each other? What would you even know about my world? She challenged firmly, layering the conversation with caution. The room held its breath. Would she step forward into the unknown, or retreat to the comfort of certainty? Sarah's heart thudded in her chest as she watched the dark liquid pool around her feet. That coffee spill felt like an omen of her own unease, one careless move away from ruining everything she had worked for. Yet, as she faced James, she felt a quiet fire igniting within her. What could I possibly learn from you? She pressed, a challenge hanging in the air, both defiant and fragile. She could sense the weight of his gaze, the tension vibrating like a taut wire between them. James seemed to inhale the challenge, contemplating his response carefully. For starters, understanding what drives someone day in and day out can open doors you didn't even know were there. Your passion for your son's future is inspiring. What if I could help extend that passion beyond the diner? A flicker of interest sparked in Sarah's chest. She had daydreamed about possibilities, but they always faded under the glaring reality of her current life. Could someone like him really bring something valuable to her world? She hated how her skepticism mingled with curiosity, a dangerous cocktail that brewed inside her mind. Why are you even interested? She couldn't help but ask, sharp-edged doubt threading through her voice. You're just another rich guy stopping for brunch, right? Why should I trust you? His expression softened, sincerity rippling through his features. Because I've been where you are. I've built companies from the ground up, but in that pursuit, I lost touch with what really matters: real life, real challenges. I don't want to lose that again. She scrutinized him, her instincts flaring. Could he be sincere? Or was this another layer of a carefully curated facade? Every instinct screamed for caution, for retreating further into her protective shell. Yet, as she peered into his eyes, she noticed ambition mingling with vulnerability, a reflection of her own desires. What isn't it for you? She asked, her voice steadier now but still guarded. This was no casual conversation. It felt monumental, like standing at the edge of a chasm that beckoned her to leap. The slight smile curved his lips, mirroring her own internal struggle. I knew I needed to reconnect with the human stories that inspire me. I want to understand the grit behind success, not just the glossy finish. You have that, he replied, his voice even. It's more than a mere business proposition, Sarah. It's about authentic connections. The air between them shifted, thick with potential and tension. Her heartbeat quickened as possibilities unfurled in her mind. Could this be a way out, a path toward something greater? The fear of failure loomed large, yet the prospect of growth flickered enticingly on the horizon. You don't understand, she began, but he interrupted, placing his hands on the table to lean in. Help me understand then. What do you truly want for your son? What legacy do you want to create? That question ignited something deep within her, welling up from the corners of her heart. A dam of dreams long stifled cracked open, revealing aspirations she had tucked away, educational opportunities, the freedom of choices, a life unburdened by constant survival. I want him to believe he can do anything, she whispered, the weight of her own words striking a profound chord. James remained silent for a moment, absorbing her honesty. Here was a chance to explore a partnership, a chance for both of them to thrive. But was she truly ready to step out of her comfort zone into something unknown? Meet me tomorrow, he urged, his voice urgent yet calm. We'll brainstorm ideas together. You deserve to pursue the life you vision for both yourself and your son. As he extended the invitation, Sarah felt the strong pull of possibility against the heavy weight of her trepidation. This could be the beginning of something transformative or a hefty descent into disappointment. Why not? She breathed, surprising even herself with the answer, her own courage surprising her. But as they exchanged contact information, a persistent question gnawed at the edges of her mind, twisting deeply. Could trusting him lead to liberation, or would it seal her fate in an even more complicated existence? In that moment, as the coffee cup lay shattered metaphorically in her hands, Sarah couldn't help but wonder, what was she truly willing to risk for a chance at something better? The following morning, Sarah stood in front of her closet, the chaos of her thoughts mirrored in the disorder surrounding her. She sifted through the wrinkled shirts and frayed jeans, contemplating what this meeting with James might bring. She had never envisioned herself as a player in a business partnership, let alone one with someone of his caliber. The impulse to retreat into her usual routine tugged at her, but she fought against it. She felt a surge of determination replacing her earlier doubts. As she stepped through the door, the crisp air struck her face, invigorating yet unsettling. Each step toward the cafe felt heavy, a stark contrast to the warmth of her son's embrace that she had left behind. Thoughts about the potential opportunities flitted through her mind like moths drawn to a flame. She clung to the idea that this could set a new course for her life, but deep down, echoes of her fears reminded her that it could just as easily lead to disaster. Upon entering the cafe, Sarah's gaze immediately fell on James, who sat at a window table, his laptop open, deep in thought. There was something grounding about his presence. He looked up as she approached, a genuine smile spreading across his face, a moment that sent warmth through her. This was different. She realized she didn't have to put on a facade. Glad you made it, he said, gesturing for her to sit. I was hoping you'd come. Let us see if you can convince me it's worth my time, she replied, attempting a playful tone to mask her unease. James chuckled, but his eyes reflected a seriousness that challenged her to take this meeting seriously. How about we start with your vision for your son? You mentioned wanting him to believe he can do anything. What does that look like in real life? The question landed heavily, forcing Sarah to confront the reality behind her aspirations. It means a stable home, enough resources for education, exposing him to experiences outside this town that could inspire him. The words spilled out of her, sentences building like a foundation she once thought impossible to construct. Those are powerful goals. What is stopping you from making that happen? James leaned back, arms crossed, assessing. His directness stripped her of her defenses, and she hesitated. Money. Time. The truth was, fear had wrapped tightly around her ambitions, suffocating them. What if I told you it doesn't all hinge on financial support? What if there are ways to cultivate opportunities without the weight of financial barriers? He interjected, Her skepticism surfaced once more, but fragments of hope filtered through. Like what? Networking, mentorship, developing skills that could be your assets in the future, he replied. You have aspirations. There are ways to connect those aspirations to tangible progress. As they spoke, Sarah felt a flicker of something within her, a sense of empowerment that she hadn't allowed herself to embrace before. Maybe you're right, but I don't even know where to start. His expression shifted, a spark of determination ignited. That's the journey, Sarah. Let us map it out together. Over the next few weeks, I'll help you identify elements you can leverage. We'll make it happen. A thrill coursed through her. He wasn't just feeding her platitudes. He was handing her tools. This was a collaboration, not a lifeline. But in the wake of this powerful partnership lay an unsettling question. What would she have to sacrifice to embrace this new path? In that moment, as the cafe bustled around them, she realized this wasn't just a business meeting. It was a chance to evolve. Could she seize this opportunity for herself and her son? Okay, let us do it, she asserted, a newfound resolve cementing her words. As they began brainstorming, Sarah's heart raced with both excitement and trepidation. But behind her conviction lurked the shadows of her past failures, continually questioning whether this leap was the right move or a harbinger of more complications. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. She stood on the precipice of change. As she looked into James' eyes, another thought lurked. Was she ready to expose the most vulnerable parts of herself to this stranger, or would nurturing new vulnerabilities become her greatest risk? The weeks that followed that pivotal meeting merged urgency with introspection. The pace of life quickened, and with every interaction with James, Sarah felt a shift deep within her, a burgeoning confidence that crept into her everyday activities. The tasks they outlined steered her toward new horizons, meticulously cataloging her skills, identifying networking opportunities, and setting tangible goals. She found herself dropping by the local community center where volunteer workshops reignited her passion for education. Here, she met people with shared interests, each conversation an import of fresh perspectives. It was no longer just about monetary support. It became about cultivating relationships and understanding how to leverage her existing strengths. Yet the undercurrents of doubt remained. Past fears tinged every success, a whisper that warned this new drive might slip through her fingers, just as past opportunities had. One especially dissonant morning, Sarah stared at herself in the bathroom mirror, the reflection of a woman striving for a future she felt she hardly deserved. She practiced her pitch, a concise explanation of her vision and purpose, but struggled with her veneer. How could she present herself boldly when her insecurities loomed so loudly in her mind? Arriving at a local networking event, her pulse quickened. James had assured her that this gathering would be a spontaneous, yet critical stepping stone. Conversations swirled around her, laughter punctuating the air as professionals exchanged cards and aspirations. The crowd seemed vibrant, electric, while she felt like an imposter. Pregnant with uncertainty, she hesitated at the entrance, the familiar pull to retreat gnawing at her gut. "Sarah, are you coming?" James's voice broke through her reverie, the confidence radiating from him as he beckoned her closer. His presence was a protective shield, and she instinctively moved toward it. "Yeah, just taking it all in," she replied, trying to sound casual despite the torrent of her thoughts. "Let us dive in together." "You've got this," he encouraged, and something in his tone steadied her. With a deep breath, Sarah plunged into new exchanges. As she spoke about her vision, she noticed the flicker of intrigue in her conversation partner's eyes. It ignited something within her. She felt her words being received and valued. Each connection chipped away at the facade she'd built. Yet, amidst this burgeoning assurance, a tall, imposing figure at the next table caught her eye. He leaned back, exuding an air of self-satisfaction that ignited her irritation. Who was he? An arrogant billionaire, it seemed, entertained by the lighter side of networking while she fought to justify her presence. "Why do you keep glancing over there?" James noticed and nudged her with curiosity. "Just a distraction. Don't you find him a bit out of place?" Sarah remarked, unable to suppress her disdain. "People come in all personalities and motivations. What is more important is how you navigate these interactions," he said, steering her back to focus. His words resonated, pushing her back to the singular goal in her hands. but a flicker of resentment lingered toward the figure, who seemed to mock the very essence of her struggles. With growing determination, Sarah took a proactive step, wondering if provoking reactions from that man could distort his arrogance into humility. She abandoned her anxieties, approaching the group that had formed around him. Every step felt like reclaiming a piece of herself in embrace of her newfound audacity. She composed her thoughts, mouth moving faster than her mind could catch up. "Excuse me, but I couldn't help but notice the conversations here have some pretty inflated egos," she began, a smile playing on her lips as challenges danced in her voice. The eyes of the table turned, scrutinizing her like she was an unexpected contender in an exclusive match. Something simmered between them, an energy that promised either ignitable collaboration or a fierce stand-off. As the conversation escalated, she couldn't shake the sensation that the man might not be just another arrogant presence. Could he embody something far more significant, a catalyst for her evolution? "You don't know me, lady, so why do you care?" came his nonchalant reply, laced with skepticism. "Because sometimes it's necessary to tear down the walls of presumptive power," she shot back, emboldened beyond her own familiarity. In that moment, she felt a critical confrontation with a part of herself she'd kept at bay for too long. Would she hold her ground or falter under the weight of his indifference? The air thickened with tension, and as the beat of the night pulsed around her, something deep within Sarah sparked, urging her to press forward. It was then she recognized this was no longer about battling others, but about wrestling with the vision of her own future. And as the heat of the exchange hung in the air, she could feel the thrill building. Was this moment a gateway to her aspirations, or would it only kindle greater challenges ahead? The tension between Sarah and the imposing figure escalated, her heart racing as his steady gaze pinned her in place. It felt as though the world around her faded into a blur, every laugh and clink of glasses muted against the electrifying backdrop of their confrontation. As she stood there, poised to challenge not just him but her own limitations, doubts fluttered at the edges of her mind. Was this the bravado she had yearned for, or simply a mirage fueled by desperation? The line between courage and foolishness felt alarmingly thin. Yet as she met his incredulous stare, something flickered inside, a spark igniting an unshakable resolve. The atmosphere thickened with possibilities, and for the first time, she comprehended the significance of her words not only to the group surrounding her, but to her own burgeoning identity. "You really think words can have any impact?" He laughed dismissively, gesturing around, as if to say this audience was a waste of her breath. "Change starts when someone dares to speak up," she replied calmly, heart pounding. Surprise flickered across his face, and she seized the moment as an opportunity, an opening to showcase both her vulnerability and tenacity. The exchanges around them swung in her favor, the crowd eager to respond to her quick wit, some even chiming in against the man's arrogance. "What if you're wrong?" one person asked, leaning in, caught in the magnetic pull of the growing debate. "What if there's more to success than just relationships and networking?" Sarah felt the momentum shift, galvanizing her with newfound purpose. "Of course, we all need connections, but they should come with respect. When you strip away pretense, you realize everyone has something valuable to offer, and that includes those you might look down on." Her words reverberated, and a few heads nodded in agreement. The self-satisfied billionaire's confidence faltered, lips pursed, as though he hadn't expected such pushback. In that moment, Sarah saw an opportunity to assert her presence in a world that had often made her feel invisible. Her voice felt strong and clear. She wasn't just revealing her perspectives, but actively participating in a dialogue that mattered. "Isn't your role as a leader to empower others rather than isolate them?" she challenged, standing a little taller. "What legacy do you leave behind when all you do is flaunt your achievements?" A hush fell over the table. Her challenge hung like a palpable force, drawing everyone's attention. She felt a thrill course through her, a rush of adrenaline that convinced her she was exactly where she needed to be, becoming someone who could wrestle with these figures of presumed power. The man opened his mouth, perhaps to retaliate, but for the first time, uncertainty accompanied arrogance. Meanwhile, Sarah's mind raced, piecing together the revelations surfacing. This wasn't merely an altercation. It was a revelation about her own strength, her capacity to tilt the scales, navigate the intricacies of ambition while challenging the status quo. As she caught James's eye across the room, a subtle nod from him reinforced her renewed resolve. It wasn't her job to tear anyone down. It was about redefining how one could rise, lightly holding power with grace. This was what she had learned in recent weeks, yet still needed to fully embrace. Just as she prepared to articulate a closing thought to seal her emerging vision, the billionaire interrupted with a surprising sincerity. So what's your real goal here? You've captivated our attention far beyond mere banter. He leaned in slightly, scrutinizing. Was he challenging her? Or was there a flicker of intrigue beneath his facade? In that challenging moment, Sarah felt the weight of ambition and the undeniable urge to reveal her truth, all while contemplating the paths this encounter could unveil. She could feel the barriers she had held on to beginning to fracture, and for the first time, she sensed they were not just barriers safeguarding her insecurities. They might also reveal her strengths, hidden dimensions of herself she had yet to embrace. And from that swirling uncertainty, she drew breath for her next words, ready to claim her place in this dynamic. Honestly, I want to build something where respect and collaboration outweigh bravado, she stated, her heart steadying. Because success is only meaningful when it doesn't exclude anyone. Intrigued whispers rippled through the room, tasking her with the energy of uncharted possibilities. Was this moment a prelude to a greater revelation regarding her own ambitions? Then, as the billionaire processed her words, a question lodged itself in the depths of her thoughts. Could this confrontation lead to unexpected alliances, or was she merely igniting a rivalry that would test her in ways she had not anticipated? The silence that followed her proclamation felt electric, each second stretching into an eternity. Sarah's heart raced with the adrenaline of having laid her truth bare in front of a group that had previously seemed so formidable. She could sense the ripple of thoughts cascading through the crowd. Some faces reflected admiration, while others hinted at skepticism. But the billionaire, now noticeably more intrigued, leaned back, studying her with a keen intensity. That's ambitious, he mused slowly, a tentative smile forming. A lovely sentiment. But what's there to guarantee it won't dissolve into mere idealism? The question struck her like a lightning bolt, a challenge to her very essence. Could she back her words with substantive action, or was she vocalizing something unattainable? She took a breath, reminding herself that she was no longer overwhelmed by self-doubt. I understand that painting ambitious ideas can sound like wishful thinking, Sarah responded, wrestling with her next words. But isn't it the pursuit of those ideals that drives innovation? Isn't creating spaces where everyone has a stake worth striving for? The billionaire's brow furrowed, and for a moment, he seemed to wrestle with her perspective. That moment of hesitation stirred a glimmer of hope within her. Perhaps she was not only contending with an opponent, she was also crafting a potential ally. A weight settled in her stomach as she noted the palpable dynamic shift in the group. Conversations resumed around them, but with a new energy. Sarah realized that what stood before them was not a debate between a powerful man and a passionate woman. It was a pivotal exchange, a redefining of narratives that could reshape the social landscape they navigated. Look, people like me often run companies. We drive profits, we conduct moves. But it's always nice to hear a fresh perspective, he replied, his tone smoothing over previous brashness. But it sounds like you're asking for a revolution without a plan. His remark clawed at her, frustration lacing her determination. Was she merely an idealistic dreamer, hoping for a reign of golden opportunities? Her thoughts raced in a whirlpool of reflection. She needed to answer not just for her own sake, but also to honor the views of those who had begun to rally around her. Perhaps that's where you can help? She shot back, surprising even herself with the steadiness of her voice. What if we built a framework together that allowed for accountability and mutual success? A network that recognizes individual strengths rather than merely connection? His gaze sharpened, betraying genuine intrigue. A bold proposition. I haven't fully strayed from my path yet. Perhaps not, but there's a long road ahead. It starts with small steps, she replied, rising to the challenge. Achievements without an underlying ethical foundation felt hollow, and she would fight to bring the core of human values into the corporate sphere. As conversations continued around them, she resolved to remain steadfast in her beliefs. Sharing her vision had put her on a precipice, a tipping point in her life path. This was an invitation for growth, both personal and professional, urging her to seek, to embrace criticism, and to recalibrate her ambitions. The billionaire's interest was flickering, and she sensed a fragile trust building. Yet, Sarah was acutely aware that making waves in a corporate ocean required more than valiant speeches. It demanded strategy, finesse, and at times, humility. The implications had begun to germinate in her mind, but she wasn't fully certain of how to navigate the growing complexity. Was she ready to leverage this spark, to possibly consider this man as a collaborator or a contentious rival? In that moment, she realized she stood at the crossroads, idealism woven into practicality. Her authentic voice challenged not just her previous norms, but also the very framework of ambition itself. She needed a game plan, an inroad into shaping her vision into reality. And so, her mind whirred with diplomacy and strategy, fueled by determination. "Let us talk more," she ventured, a daring glint appearing in her eyes. The prospect of harnessing this moment felt invigorating, yet a thorn of doubt clawed at her confidence. Could she truly manipulate this encounter, or was she running into a quagmire of corporate politics? In the depths of uncertainty, the desire to test herself and her ideals blazed bright. Tomorrow's conversation could make or break more than just this association. It could mark the beginning of a revolution, or just a lesson in naivety. But there was no turning back now. She would need to prepare. The path to influence was littered with challenges, and she had only just begun to chart her course. The morning sun streamed through Sarah's window, illuminating an array of notes and articles spread across her desk. Each piece bore witness to her ambitions, ideas poised to take flight. Yet, a nagging uncertainty settled like fog over her thoughts. She needed a clear strategy for her impending meeting, one that seamlessly merged her vision with the billionaire's pragmatic mindset. As she sipped her coffee, the rich aroma wrapped around her like a comforting embrace. This wasn't just a meeting. It was a potential turning point. Sarah reflected on her last words, floating in the air like ethereal promises. The gravity of her stance weighed on her. "Can I truly lead this charge?" she questioned, glancing at the scattered papers that felt increasingly daunting. The challenge was overwhelming, yet exhilarating. The sensation of being on the edge of something larger than herself surged within her. Fear gnawed at her insides, whispering the risk of failure. But beneath it all, determination pulsed fiercely. She flipped through her notes, searching for a thread to connect her ideals with actionable steps. Accountability, transparency, shared success, these were not just buzzwords. They could be the foundation of a new form of business, one that aligned profits with purpose. With newfound resolve, she began to outline a draft that suggested a clear framework for a partnership with the billionaire. Could their conversations lead to a structure that not only generated profit, but also fostered an ethical approach? If she could articulate a vision that resonated with him, perhaps she could merge her ideals with his experience. The clock on the wall ticked relentlessly, a reminder of the precious time slipping away. She needed to prepare her mental arsenal, practicing her lines until they flowed naturally. How to counter his skepticism while igniting his intrigue. Each potential question he might pose hovered in the back of her mind, begging for thoughtful responses. As she paced around her small apartment, her thoughts spiraled into strategies and counter-strategies. She envisioned scenarios of potential cynicism dressed as shrewd business acumen, and crafted retorts that showcased her depth of understanding. Would he challenge her to explain the distinct advantages of her ideas? What if he mocked the prospects she proposed? She could feel a sense of power rising. These were not threats, but opportunities, invitations to deepen their dialogue. Her phone buzzed, jolting her back to the present. A message from her mentor popped up. "When in doubt, speak to your passions. They are your most convincing argument." The words rang true, grounding her amidst the whirlwind of her anxieties. "My passions," Sarah murmured, recalling the individuals whose lives could change as a result of her initiative. It was about them, their struggles and hopes, and the chance to create a ripple effect that transcended mere profit. The billionaire might be able to help her harness the engine of his influence, but it was the people she would ultimately serve that mattered most. As she prepared for the meeting, She felt two distinct parts of her merging together. The idealistic dreamer fueled by her vision and the strategizing pragmatist laying her groundwork. If she could align these aspects, she might just overcome the chasm between their perspectives. Soon, she found herself standing in front of the mirror, channeling the confidence she needed. "You can do this," she whispered to her reflection. She envisioned the conversation unfolding, the exchanges, the negotiations, and most importantly, the challenge of staying true to herself without compromising her vision. With a final glance at the clock, she gathered her notes, ready to step into the arena where commerce met compassion. But even as she prepared, a flicker of anxiety loomed. Could she truly connect with him, break through the layers of skepticism, and forge a meaningful partnership? The countdown to their meeting had begun, a tangible tension pulsating within her as the moment of truth approached. Each tick of the clock drowned out her lingering doubts, setting the stage for a pivotal confrontation that as Sarah stepped out of her apartment. She felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The battle for her ideals was about to begin, and it remained to be seen. Would her vision illuminate a pathway towards collaboration or push her deeper into the maelstrom of corporate coldness? The elevator door slid open, and she took a deep breath. Her heart thudded loudly in her chest as she prepared to confront not just the billionaire, but the many uncertainties that lay ahead. "Let us see if I can match your ambitions with mine," she whispered under her breath, stepping confidently into the unknown. What she didn't yet realize was that this meeting would unravel threads of connection beyond mere business, a dynamic that could reshape everything she envisioned. The questions loomed larger than life. Would she spark the required change, or would she find herself outmatched in a game she was just beginning to play? As Sarah stepped into the bustling cafe that served as the meeting place, her breath hitched at the chaotic ambience. People floated around her, voices mingling with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, creating a whirlpool of energy that both inspired and intimidated her. Every face seemed to reflect confidence, a flicker of success that made her question her own resolve. The stakes felt infinitely higher here. She was not just innovating. She was swimming upstream against the current of established norms. Spying a large table near the back, she felt a surge of determination. This was not just a space for negotiation. It was a battleground of ideas. As she approached, the figure of the billionaire loomed large, seated with an air of relentless authority. His reputation was formidable, yet Sarah discovered an unexpected sense of empowerment as she recalled her mentor's words. The real power lay in her passion. "Mr. Johnson," she greeted, extending her hand with a firm grip. His eyes briefly locked onto hers, and she sensed a flicker of curiosity mixed with skepticism. "Sarah," he replied, his tone neutral but his gaze penetrating. "I'm intrigued by your proposal." Seizing this moment, she offered him a concise summary of her vision, carefully weaving together the threads of her research, her passion for ethical business practices, and the potential for shared success with a sprinkle of marketing prowess. As she spoke, she noticed his brow furrowing slightly, a clear indication that she was breaking through his initial defenses. But then the questions began sharp, probing, aimed to unearth weaknesses. Why would a billionaire like me invest in something that appears to challenge traditional profitability? His voice dripped with skepticism as he leaned back, arms crossed. In that moment, uncertainty flickered through her mind, but she quickly anchored herself with the mantra she had practiced in the mirror. "Because transformation is the new frontier of business, Mr. Johnson. Sustainable practices not only impact lives, but also draw in a younger consumer base that increasingly values ethics over mere profit." His expression remained unmoved, yet she could sense a shift. Of tension flared, challenging the dynamics at play. This wasn't merely a meeting. It was a duel of ideologies. As they navigated through tough inquiries, Sarah felt a different kind of clarity emerging, one she anticipated. She realized that each challenging question was not meant to belittle her vision, but to provoke deeper thoughts. With each answer she crafted, her confidence began to swell, revealing layers of competence she had almost forgotten. It was as if she stepped into a revival of her own beliefs. "Let us talk risks," he interjected. "What if this fails? I've seen countless initiatives crumbled by idealism. Risks are a part of growth. It's how we learn, how we evolve," she replied, more animated now. But it's not about avoiding failure. It's about the impact we create in the process. With a transparent framework, we can pivot and adapt. A silence hung between them, crackling with tension as Sarah held her breath, desperately waiting for him to respond. His gaze softened momentarily, a flicker of acknowledgement crossing his face. "It sounds like you've thought this through," he finally admitted, leaning forward, a shift toward her direction noted in his body language. This was a pivotal turn. Her clarity was cutting through his armor of skepticism. Yet even as they made headway, a flicker of trepidation chased her. Was she prepared for the next step if he decided to pursue this partnership? Could she continue to navigate the complexities of merging her ideals with his experience without losing herself in the process? As their conversation continued, two distinct paths loomed ahead, one of shattered ideas or the exhilarating promise of collaboration. The thrill of possibility raced through Sarah, igniting her ambitions. She found herself yearning not only for a successful partnership, but for a mentorship that could nurture her professional growth. The meeting unfolded, the air crackled with a sense of urgency. What choices would form the foundation of her future endeavors? And how far would she be willing to venture into uncharted waters? "You've impressed me, Sarah," he said, the corner of his mouth curling into something that almost resembled a smile. "What if we explore this further?" A wave of optimism surged within her, but doubts still whispered in the shadows of her mind. Would she be able to keep the balance of power in this partnership, or would she succumb to the prowess of a titan in the business world? It was time to confront her fears and step into a realm where ambition met audacity. As they wrapped up their discussion, Sarah realized that this encounter could be the keystone to her aspiration. Yet, as she prepared to leave, one nagging thought lingered. Was she ready for the tides of change that lay ahead? The time had come to embrace her growing strength, but at which cost? Would she rise as an equal partner, or would she simply become another voice in the background of his vision? Sarah stood at the threshold of a new chapter, having engaged with the daunting businessman and assertively articulated her vision for an ethical partnership. As the realization settled, she could feel the palpable changes within her. The once faltering self-doubt was now replaced by solid confidence. Each conversation she navigated with James had chipped away at her insecurities, molding her into a more powerful advocate for her ambitions. In the subsequent days, the environment around her shifted profoundly. Sarah immersed herself in a rigorous strategy formulation for the proposed collaboration. Each section of her plan articulated sustainable practices that intertwined community development with profitability, ensuring that respect and collaboration weren't just lofty aspirations but tangible objectives. She was no longer merely a waitress. She was an architect of her future, a role she now embraced with vigor. It was during a particularly vibrant meeting with James, where they debated market strategies, that Sarah witnessed the fruits of her transformation. The confident demeanor she once envied in others now radiated from within her. She presented her ideas with conviction, blending insight with passion. The moment James nodded emphatically at her points felt like a symphony of validation ringing through her ambitions. Yet, it wasn't the acknowledgement that fueled her fire. It was the realization that her voice mattered. As the discussions progressed, James frequently turned to her, seeking her input on decisions. This newfound dynamic cemented her place as an equal partner rather than a subordinate. She had conquered her initial trepidations about being overshadowed, proving that her insights were invaluable and worth promoting. Weeks turned into months, and Sarah reveled in her own growth. She felt a shift in her community too. Encouraged by her newfound voice, she initiated seminars at the local community center that focused on financial literacy and entrepreneurship. These workshops offered practical knowledge to aspiring individuals, empowering them to pursue their dreams with concreteness and ambition. The very confidence that had initially been foreign to her now surged through her workshops as she revisited her own journey and highlighted the importance of resilience. The true culmination of her journey came during a significant presentation in front of local investors and community leaders. This was the moment she had trained for, a chance to pitch her life's work, an ethical framework that sought to tie profit with purpose. In that room, as she stood poised at the podium, she recognized the distance between who she had been and the unwavering professional she had become. Each sentence echoed with authority as she relayed her plans to create a new paradigm for business rooted in integrity. After the presentation, one by one, accolades surged her way. Investors expressed interest. Community leaders applauded her initiative. "You've not only paved a way forward for yourself, but for all of us, Sarah," a local entrepreneur remarked, pride sparkling in his eyes as he extended a handshake. The moment was transformative. Sarah realized that she had not just achieved personal success. She was spearheading communal advancement. The vigor of her self-determination had manifested into an opportunity for countless others. Standing in the glow of recognition, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment wash over her. With solid confidence, established competence, and a recognized position in both business and community, she reaffirmed the importance of hard work and altruism in her new role. She embraced the journey that had culminated in this monumental achievement. Knowing she had positively impacted the lives of those around her, she stepped forward to discuss potential collaborations with eager investors. She could hear her mother's echo of support in her mind. To think, just months ago, she had needed to muster the courage to confront a man with wealth and privilege. Now, she shared the stage, no longer hesitant, but empowered, showing that with vision and tenacity, bridges can be built from seemingly insurmountable divides. Now, the moment had arrived for you to engage directly. You need to subscribe now to witness stories of transformation that elevate the human spirit. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and fuel more empowering content. Comment your thoughts and reactions, because your voice matters in this journey. Finally, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who crave inspiration and motivation. Don't wait even one more second to support the channel and spread these impactful stories far and wide.